Hey, listen up. We got another episode of Cracks, featuring the crack man himself, Bill Krackenberger, and our co-host, John Orlando, straight from Las Vegas. Cracks is your ticket inside the world of sports betting, with tips, picks, special guests, and more. Only on WSN.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Cracks. We've got NFL playoffs coming up in full swing here, and of course, we need Mr. Bill Krackenberger to break it all down for us. What's going on, Bill?
Hey, John. No, this is a real fun week, man. It's for real, you know? A lot of times throughout the year, I really don't choose to watch a lot of anything really sports-wise, unless I'm betting it live or betting half times. But this is for real. I enjoy watching football this time of the year, so I look forward to it.
You know,
this will be fun.
I added I don't know if you can see it. You can't really see it. I added a Cowboys helmet into the mix this week in honor of my boys in the playoffs. So those are my two teams.
Oh, wow.
You know, my adopted Raiders team for the hometown team here in Vegas. And of course, I'm a diehard Cowboy since I'm 7. So Cowboys, Raiders, yeah. Super Bowl, Bill? There's no way.
No, that's got to be hundreds to one, I would think.
Right?
Happening. Yeah, there is sportsbooks put up the kind of bets like that, but that one will be probably the long shot of
right.
One of the long shots.
See, now that I just said it, the way my brain works, I have to go bet that could be a scenario. I have to go bet on it because otherwise I'm going to go, oh my God, I said it on Cracks. I said it on the show, right? So now I just cost myself. I have to bet it. It's not going to happen.
Cool.
Well, there's lots to get into this week. You know, we've got a great guest coming up a little later in the show. We've got the lead writer for ESPN.com, Chalk. He knows everything about the business side of sports gambling. A friend of yours, David Purdum, right?
Yeah,
you've
David's
known him
great.
For a while.
I've known him for a while. He's written for ESPN for a while. He's basically the go-to guy in the sports betting industry, especially for ESPN. So he has the ear of lots of people, sharp guys, squares, sportsbook directors. And, he's the guy. And
we just had the national championship. Did you watch that game? Did you watch that or no?
I watched some of it. I actually decided to watch they showed a replay of the fight that I was at, which was a fantastic fight, Wilder Fury. That was on FS1.
Oh, I saw it. I watched it.
Yeah. Wasn't that a great fight?
It really was.
That fourth round was so they put up 30-1 FanDuel's odds.
Yeah.
They had Fury minus 30-1. And right after they put it up, Fury got knocked down.
Yeah.
So you can imagine someone actually laying 30-1. The guy's on the canvas.
Right.
He went down twice. Second time, I didn't think he was going to get up or make the count. So that was a great fight to watch. If you guys didn't get to see that, I seen it in person. Now I've seen it on TV again. One of the best fights I've ever seen.
Is there an argument to make that he's the best heavyweight ever or no?
No.
I
mean, he's no.
Because he hasn't fought the number of big names, right?
He's 6'9". He was fighting a 6'7" guy. Yes, he's a giant. And I think it's harder to hit down than it is to hit up.
Uh-huh.
It's a harder thing to do. It's not as easy as people think.
Right.
I don't know if he would last with the likes of like Joe Louis or even the Muhammad Ali, who was a great fighter. Now, he may give them trouble. I'm not saying that, but Rocky Marciano, there's some great heavyweights of all time. I just named 3 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would. He does remind me of, I know this is probably before most people times. He kind of reminds me of a Jack Johnson, who was champion back in like the 20s and 30s. Jack Johnson was a heavyweight champion for years. Hated amongst a lot of people though too, but he was like a big kind of didn't look like the body frame of a boxer.
Wow, you really know your boxing history, huh?
Oh, I love boxing. Boxing was my favorite sport with baseball growing up.
Really?
I love boxing. Oh, I love going. I went to Tyson Spinks in '88, Tyson Holmes. I was there. I saved my money.
Wow. Tyson Spinks was like, that was the 90-second knockout, right? And like through the ropes, 91. Falling through he couldn't just stay on his feet after he got knocked out.
He was petrified in the locker room. Michael Spinks got $10 million for that fight, was petrified to fight Mike Tyson, and it showed in the ring. Larry Holmes was at the end of his career, probably just went in there for a paycheck too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been to a lot of great fights and watched a lot of great fights, and the Gaddy Ward trilogy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we've had such great fights. Corrales. I can keep on going and going. I actually, believe it or not, which all the kids know and the millennials know, Floyd Mayweather. I kind of lost it a little bit after Floyd got it, because Floyd really wasn't a fighter. He was the smart fighter. He was a defensive fighter. Of course, I understand he's 50-0. He chose his victims wisely. He had a great team around him. He was a defensive fighter, famous for the shoulder roll. And, listen, okay. He's a very good fighter. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But the boxing, for example, I would recommend anybody out there to watch Hagler Hearns. It was the first round
one
of their fight.
Yeah.
Round one. Like, that's something, it's on YouTube. Watch that round one. That was fighters.
Yeah.
That was an era of boxing that was unbelievable. Hearns, Hagler, Leonard, Duran.
Yeah.
You could just keep on going and naming names, but that was boxing.
Hagler Hearns round one was literally like watching a Rocky movie. Right? Like unbelievable back and forth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk more about, so Antonio Brown still in the news. AB is still in the news. I don't know if you saw this, but I guess he snuck an OnlyFans model, Ava Louise, into the team hotel the night before the big blow up when they played the Jets. Did you see that?
Yeah. You're not just like in the Rocky. Remember Rocky? Adrian wanted to fool around. He said he can't fool around a week before the fight.
Right.
This idiot, let me just call it what it is. This idiot's fooling around the night before the game, a game that they needed. So listen, last week we went on and I said, I'm not going to talk about it. The guy's got some mental issues. I kind of feel bad. Let's forget about it and hopefully gets better. Now I'll just say it's overboard. He's on shows. He's, the sunglasses sitting back. Like he's this terrible example for kids. Terrible example for sports and now reading all this stuff, and this girl then leaked the thing. Of course she leaked it. She was a nobody.
Yeah.
She was nobody before that. This Antonio Brown relationship there that lasted for 8 minutes. So now she's somebody. But listen, she's a garbage can too for putting all her stuff on TV. Give me a break. Can't stand these people.
It's a good lesson that hopefully a lot of these players learn, that they have to remember they are targets, and people are going to try to get in there and be able to leverage their fame of that athlete to benefit themselves, and this looks like a clear case of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then I kind of even gave him a pass for saying the things he said about Tom Brady.
Yeah,
and now it's out of control. He's out of control, and I hope he doesn't come back to football. Screw him.
There it is. Words from the Crack Man. Crack has weighed in on AB. I like it. Well, that would be a good spinoff show, The Court of Crack. We should do The Court of Crack. Maybe. I don't know. All right, the Giants fired Joe Judge. That means there's 7 NFL openings, including the Dolphins, after winning 8 of their last 9. Is that shocking?
The Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
Coach he got fired after winning 8 of the last 9. Shocked everybody. The owner said that he just sees a different vision for his team, and there is 7. Is there 7 openings now?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. 7 openings for NFL coaches. That has to be a record after a full regular season. So,
well, yeah, and think we're not even through the playoffs, so there's probably going to be some more, right?
No, I mean you can't fire up. So your team gets to the playoffs, you better not be firing.
Yeah. Okay, anyway. Everybody's talking about the Raiders versus the Chargers. This was kind of a crazy thing, the way all this unfolded. Did you watch the game?
Yes, it was one of the greatest games, and as usual, I passed on tickets that our friend Al.
Oh no!
Said, hey, you want to come over and watch the game? I got 2 seats, and this was like 2 hours before the game. I was like, hey, even if it was 10 hours before the game, I would have said no. I said no, but thank you. That same suite had some openings there, and I didn't go to the game. I didn't go to one of the greatest games of all time. Almost went to overtime. I'm sorry, almost landed on a tie in overtime.
Right.
And that would have been there's a lot of money that the books had some liabilities on. People were betting because there was a playoff scenario. If these teams do end in a tie, they both go to the playoffs. But the only difference is, and people aren't talking about this too much, yes, if it ended in a tie, both teams would have went to the playoffs. However, the Raiders would have had to go through Kansas City instead of having to go through Cincinnati. So they wanted to win the game, and it proved it by them, throwing the ball at the end when there's 2 minutes left. They got the ball, throwing, trying to get down the field to get a field goal, which they got that field goal. People wanted to make a lot of it. That the Chargers called a timeout, so the Raiders were mad and they were willing to sit on the ball. I don't believe that. I think they wanted to go through Cincinnati. But granted, it almost didn't happen. He doesn't have to make that field goal. That kid, Carlson, I think his name, he's unbelievable this year.
Yeah.
Kicking field goals.
Yeah,
so,
he's money.
He's money. So, again, they could have not gotten an extra 10 or 15 yards. They had to gain yardage in order to get in field goal range. So, very interesting, though. Very interesting. It was an interesting game. It was fun. A lot of the people I know, people were sending me their tickets. I showed you before. It was a $140 parlay. Someone sent me that he had to win $34,000.
Wow.
He bet a money line on the Jacksonville Jaguars to the money line of being a tie in that game to $34,000. So amazing.
That is amazing. I know you don't like sides, but let's just talk about some of them of these lines here of the Raiders and the Bengals minus 5.5 as of right now, at least. Anything stick out on that game for you?
That game opened up 6.5. Primarily, let's use since like 2017, 2018 season. There's been like 65% of these games have underdogs in this first round here. So wild card round. I think a lot of these games were priced a little high, and I think the sharp sports bettors came in and took the dogs here. And this is one of the games. This game went to 6.5 as soon as it came out, and some people bought it to 7. And how smart they are, because the line now is 5.5.
Yeah.
So it's a rematch of a game. The Raiders played them a few weeks back and lost by, I don't know, I think around 20 points. And that was at home too, by the way. It was here in Las Vegas. So people probably say, they beat them once, they can beat them again now at home. But typically we don't find teams sometimes in every sport. It's tough to beat the same team twice in a year. Now, once you get to the NFL and the major sports, that doesn't really hold its weight as much as it does in college sports. But again, the Raiders probably learned off that. It was a pretty close game until I think Cincinnati got 2 or 3 touchdowns in the late quarter there. But so that should be a fun game, though. These are fun games to watch. I didn't bet any of these sides at all. If anything, I would lean to some of the dogs when the lines came out. Here, look at the second game, Pats at Bills. These teams played each other twice this year already.
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
They played in that.
I wrote the Patriots off early in the year. I thought, they're not going to get there. And does this mean Belichick? Do you think he's kind of like Brady showed, what he can be life after Belichick last year by winning? Does this give Belichick, not that he needed any street cred? I mean, obviously he's been a top tier coach for a very long time. But does this kind of give him a little set of stripes, though, extra stripes, or no?
Yeah. This does, sure. After losing Brady and Gronk, and he probably took some flack over there in the media, and who knows what he took behind closed doors. He's one of those coaches that has a say in who's to be traded and not, and who let go. And he actually made a giant mistake letting go of Tom Brady and followed by Gronk and a couple other guys late in their careers, or what he thought, as we see what happened last year. So this is a big step up for him. This is an interesting game again. Bills -4. The same game took place a few weeks back, a month and a half back, in Buffalo when it was terrible weather. I'll say it again, like I said it back then. I just don't know if the Pats have the quarterback. He's very green, even though he had a good season. I don't see him holding up the trophy in the Super Bowl. They may get by the Bills here, though. The Bills were, early in the year before the season and during preseason football, they were like the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
But we see what happened to them, and I think this game will be a battle too. Probably too many points again, but. I'm not betting any of these games.
Yeah. And then the Eagles are a team that, maybe because I'm a Cowboy fan, but the Eagles are a team that just they just find a way to get in there. I don't know how they do it. Like
everyone's counting them out too. Everyone's like, all the shows are saying they're terrible and they got no shot. This game opened up at 7 in New Jersey and quickly went to 9.5. And then it got hit back down to about 8.5, and now it's getting some more money again. So there's some two-way money here. Of course, everyone loves the Bucs. So
yeah,
I'm sure you'll be on the Bucs, John.
I will. You know my motto: never bet against Brady. You can't count Brady out. It's just silly. You can't do it. You just can't do it. I've learned my lesson over the years. The Niners at the Cowboys -3. This is a tough game for the Cowboys, but I believe that they'll get it done. But I'm nervous.
Sharp money on the dog here.
Yeah.
Some sharp money on the dog here. And out of all the games this weekend, that's probably my number one dog that can easily win compared to the rest of them.
Yeah.
I think that the Dallas, it just matters what Dallas offense shows up.
Right.
It's really the simple thing.
Yeah.
So,
and then let me ask you this. Steelers at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are -12.5 on a playoff game. Is that one of the largest spreads you can think of in a playoff game, or am I just keying in on this for some reason?
You'll always come across something like this when you have a big team, a big name team, big marquee team against a team that just slips in the wild card. So no, there's been double-digit favorites over the years, and this is no different. The line opened up 13, even went 13.5. Now it's down to 12.5. Some dog money coming in here. I'd be interested to see what happens throughout this game. If you can get some good live lines. It'll be interesting. I may do some live line betting where I find some low hanging fruit. Not something I talk about too much. I'll give the viewers something here. So let's say you have the Pinnacles and the Chris's, the offshore world, their live lines running in the background. You can just pull up Don Best and they'll have the live lines from each site. And then you have the slower moving sports books. I'm not going to mention them. I'm not going to give that away. That's for you to do. It's real simple, though. But look at the slower moving sports books lines. And I think the sharper line is the offshore line that's in the far off places. So basically, you don't have to know anything. You could just market cap. That's what it's called, market capping. You're capping a market, a sharp market compared to maybe a square market with so much square money. These sports books have so much square money in them. The sports books here in America, some of them have to leave the lines a little bit too high on the favorites, maybe because they're going to get that. Even though a live line may be Tampa Bay -10 and offshore maybe -9. Well, these people don't know that. They're still laying the 10.
Right.
So they have to leave it 10. I understand, but it's a value just to jump in on the dog there. So there you go. That's a big lesson for people.
Yeah, that's a good one. Last game, Cardinals at the Rams. Again, two teams that, they look great, then they look bad, then they look great again, right? It's
these teams were both picked real high throughout the year. Throughout the year, both of these teams were literally like a co-favorite to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So and now they've played bad as of late, or not that late in the season, I should say. They didn't play that well. So they both are, the winner of this game. I would like to see if they can go on to the next game. That's the tougher game. So we'll see what happens.
And you kind of touched on this a little earlier in this segment that of the 6 games, 5 are rematches from the regular season and 2 are the third time around. Bengals beat the Raiders, Tampa Bay beat the Eagles, the Pats and the Bills split, Cards and the Rams split, and the Chiefs killed the Steelers. So do you put a lot of stock into what happened between the teams earlier in the season, or do you wipe the slate clean and it's just a brand new ball game?
I kind of wiped the slate clean. This is for real here, and the situations could be different. There could have been, especially this year, where there was COVID outages and injuries, and so you have to look at go a little bit deeper in depth before you just make your wagers off of the first matchup between the two teams. I would go deeper and look deeper into that before you just go off half-cocked.
Well, there you have it. Words of wisdom from Bill Krackomberger. People, I say it every week, and this would be a really good time for you to take my advice. Download the Crack Wins app. It's on Apple, it's on Google Play, or just go to crackwins.com. And you can get the inside scoop of the Crackman. He was 139-73 in the regular season in the NFL. That is 65%, which is his own words, never to be done again, never duplicated.
I can't.
Really?
I can't do that again. I know. 65%? No. It's a freak thing. It happened in basketball a couple of years back. It hasn't happened since. But yeah, college basketball, right now we're on a nice run. I think we won like 8 of the last 9. But that's short term. I want long term. So we're going to continue that and have our winning season. But yeah, 139-73. I wrote it down myself. Wow, that doesn't look right. So that's what proposition bets with props and first halves and correlated parlays and teasers and stuff. Had a really, really good season. Really, really happy.
Yeah, well, be sure to download the CrackWinds app. As I said, it's on Apple, it's on Google, or just go to crackwins.com. NFL, NBA, and of course college basketball. Now's the time to join CrackWinds and kick off your 2022 the right way. Baseball season's right around the corner.
Yeah, no, it's coming up. Pitchers and catchers.
Yeah,
ready to roll.
My favorite time of year. Okay, and
WSN.
Yeah, WSN has bonuses for New York, Caesars, DraftKings, and FanDuel. You were mentioning before we started rolling.
Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, I put it up on my Twitter today. I emailed them at the beginning and said, hey, New York's getting ready to roll here. Can we get some bonuses up for the people? And they came out. I don't even know how they negotiated this bonus. They negotiated a $3,000 bonus from Caesars in New York. We don't have that bonus anywhere else that I know of. So that's a really good bonus. It's on WSN.com, the Caesars bonus, and there's also big bonuses for the other 3 sports books that have went mobile, and there'll be more added throughout the year. I think there's 5 more coming on. So very interesting though. These bonuses here, WSN.com, not only the good articles and all the information for you on check on a daily basis, but I love the bonuses for all the different jurisdictions, not just New Jersey, not just New York. There's wherever you're at, and there's legalized sports betting. They have negotiated with some of the best sports books for some of the best bonuses out there. Literally, you can't just go to the site. You're not going to get that. You may get $100, or you may go through WSN and get 3,000. I mean, that's what I'm reading here. So this is a great bonus they negotiated. If you don't have Caesars yet in New York, make sure you take advantage of that. Go to WSN for all your gambling needs, the articles, the stories. They have great market news of what's going on in the industry. I love it.
All right, Bill, our guest today is award-winning journalist David Purdum, who reports on the business side of the gambling industry for ESPN. His written work appears in ESPN Chalk, which is the gambling vertical of ESPN.com. He also appears frequently on Daily Wager, the network's daily sports betting news and information television show, and on ESPN's Outside the Lines. Let's welcome David Purdum to Wise Kracks. What's going on, David?
Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So, David, I've known you for a pretty long time. And, I just don't know about you, though. I don't know where you started. How'd you become attached to this sports betting and gambling industry? Maybe you want to tell our viewers. They would appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. First of all, my career started as a traditional newspaper journalist, right? I was working for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I had been a sports editor at the Slidell Century News, which is a suburb of New Orleans. So when I was at the AJC, this is 2008, and the newspaper industry, man, going way down, right? Well, I was getting ready to get married, getting ready to have a baby, going to be a dad for the first time. I got nervous, so I started looking for places to freelance. I found covers.com. Everybody knows probably Covers if you've been in the betting industry for a while. I started writing. I think I got paid like $25 a story, just little things. But when I started writing it was like, betting previews and things like that. I started finding that I really liked writing about the betting industry and the characters and the stories that came out of it. So, it kind of spiraled from there. I went and worked at the lines makers at Sporting News, which was a little venture that was for a while that was on Sporting News. And then ultimately I landed at ESPN in 2014. Chad Millman, who's now the head of Action Network, hired me. He was kind of the first guy at ESPN to really push betting. And he brought me aboard. And here I am 8 years later.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, sure. I remember Chad back then. I was on one of his first Beyond the Bets, I think it's called. There was a segment that was on there. I was on a couple of them, but the first one I wish I would have made a copy of. Boy, it was my life story back in, I don't know, it's probably about 9 years ago. It was really good, 10 years ago. And I probably wish I would have made a copy of that. But anyway, that's great, Dave. That's great, Dave. And, I love reading. Even though I don't reach out to you, I read every article, just to let you know. I read every article. You're right. I know you're the pulse of this industry. So one of my favorite things to read, though, I actually like reading the different sportsbook bets that the operators talk about. So now, what do you do? Do you have certain contacts in the sports books? Are they generally like pretty transparent though about the winners and losers, or do you have to drag it out of them, or how does that work?
Well, it used to be a lot more difficult. I mean, I would have to call every sports book around and, you just develop sources over the years and do it. Now, they basically send them all out on press releases, mass releases to the press. And, you can get your betting percentages. Sometimes you'll get the large wagers and so forth. In terms of transparency, they don't necessarily promote the losers as much. And there's two things. People think, they're trying to hide. Not necessarily. They just don't want to rub it in the guy's face, right? If somebody places a huge money line bet on the Colts last week, right? Laying a big price, playing a big bet to win a little bit. Those are always kind of fascinating, but the books at the same time aren't trying to rub it in the guy's face. So yes and no is my answer in terms of their transparency. We often hear much more about the winners, much more about the wild parlays than we do the losing bets.
Yeah, it makes sense. Cool.
Bill just mentioned sports books. Here in Vegas has had its biggest year ever. The whole state of Nevada, for that matter, biggest season ever, or year ever betting sports. Even with all the other books popping up all over the country, does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. I did not think it until we get California on board. I don't know that Nevada's handle is going to drop significantly. And even then, we're seeing it in other states as well. You're getting a lot of syndicate play. Bill probably is aware of this, but you're getting that in different states. If you are working for a syndicate, you have guys in Nevada, you have guys in New Jersey, you have guys in Indiana, and that money is continuing to grow. Even though with COVID, you lost a lot of travel in Nevada and some of the recreational bets. So in that terms, the amount of handle, it seemed like I thought it was going to dip a little bit, but it hadn't. So I just don't think there's going to be any significant impact on Nevada until we see California legalize, and that's still a couple years away.
Interesting.
That really makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense actually, because I thought that Nevada was going to fall off a little bit because people, I know my buddies from back east, they don't come in for a Super Bowl. I have a group of guys from Philly. They don't come in for Super Bowl anymore. They don't come in for March Madness. And they always used to. So if I figure if they're representing like the groups of guys that would come in for those big events. But I think, to be honest with you, we're guys here, we'll talk. I think a lot of guys like to just get away from their wives and kids for a while and still come out to Vegas, and especially March when the weather's a little bit better out here than it is back east. So that surprised me. How about these numbers in New York? Giant numbers in New York as far as the new signups go. Did that surprise you, or did you think it was going to be that big of numbers? Because they were ridiculous, Dave. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there was 5.8 million geolocation transactions. That's basically sports books have a geolocation service basically, and when they take a bet, that geolocation has to ping where that bettor is, right? They don't want to take a bet from some guy in Wisconsin if they're in New York. So that's how they track those things. And there was 5.8 million of those, transactions between a sports bettor and a sports book, and just over the weekend in 2 days when it went live. So that's massive. It was almost double what the same time period that Pennsylvania did when they launched. There was a 12-hour time period that they tracked the same geolocation thing, and New York did double. So I don't think anybody's surprised that New York's going to be a massive market, but how big it was, how quickly it came to fruition. Remember, we only had 4 books go live that on Saturday.
Yeah.
There's still 5 more to come, so it's only going to grow. New York's going to be massive. It'll be interesting to see what happens to New Jersey. I
don't think Caesars I think Caesars had a big problem. People were complaining on Twitter and everything. So the sponsor of our show is WSN.com. WSN has an unbelievable offer for New York. I don't even, to be honest with you, I haven't talked to John about this or anything. I don't even understand how in New York you can get $3,000 through our link, but yet in other states they don't get that much of a bonus. So there's an incentive for New York bettors, and they must negotiate special deals, I guess. Like I said, we haven't talked about it yet, but that's really a good incentive for people in New York, $3,000. So, I've heard, and this was not on our question list here. I've heard that it's a 51% tax rate in New York compared to Jersey, which is I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, is it around 8% in New Jersey, something like that?
8% retail, 15% on
8% retail. Yeah.
51% though is by far the highest. Pennsylvania's 36%. So a lot of people are saying that.
And people said in Pennsylvania they'll never make money. What do they say in New York? 51%. Well, I'm an old school guy, so I've been betting sports for literally 40 years since I'm a little kid, unfortunately, because I was a loser at first, but that's a whole other story. But, I'll tell you why I think they're going to make money. Back then in New York, you used to be a bookmaker, and you used to find other customers that would bring you more customers. Today it's called an agent. Ooh, it's a word that people don't like to talk about now. But you used to give the agent 50% to bring you business in. So whatever your customers lose, you get 50% of their loss. Well, the bookmakers still drove around the nice Cadillacs. They still were the guys with the money, throwing the money around. They made it. So I'll tell you right now, on volume, I think that there's still money, believe it or not. I think there's still money to be made. I know that you have to pay for customer retention and marketing and stuff. I think there's still money to be made there in New York, and especially on this kind of volume. Yes, it's going to hurt New Jersey for sure, but I still think New Jersey will have bigger numbers than Nevada. That's my prediction anyway. So we'll see
I would agree. I mean, most estimates have been about 20% haircut for New Jersey from the New York legalization. I would say that that's right in the realm of how much more New Jersey's handle has been than Nevada for the last several months, since they've eclipsed Nevada as the largest sports betting market in the U.S. So I would think New Jersey will still be ahead of Nevada.
Yeah. David, I love when you tweet things out like this weekend's. And again, I should have responded to this because I really like this kind of stuff. And like FanDuel, I think the one was FanDuel. I think I got it on my phone. Anyway, I think it was FanDuel. You said I took a picture of it. Darn it, I could find it. You said that 98% of the money. Wow, like that. Are you getting that from FanDuel? 98% of the money is on the Titans. 89% on the Packers. Do you get that from one of the traders someone at FanDuel or one of the?
Yeah, FanDuel sends it out. Like it used to be, like I said, 4 or 5 years ago, you'd have to call all the Vegas books around. Now, these companies that come in, the FanDuels and DraftKings, they have huge marketing departments, and they'll send those out, regularly to everybody. So
that is unbelievable. That these numbers that you got, 98% on one.
That's insane.
Teams? I never even seen that before. Of course, we could see that. Obviously, you see what happened. They lost outright. It's funny, out here in Vegas, Circa was the first sports book the night before the game to go from 15 to 14 in one shot. Bing. And then I immediately told my buddies, I said, listen, I just seen this on my screen. You can guarantee tomorrow this game will be 14. And sure enough, it was 14 everywhere. But yet it still didn't entice me to bet. I hate betting NFL sides. Anything can happen any given Sunday. NFL sides are the hardest to beat. I talk about it on every show I do. It's not how I make a living. I make a living on totals, proposition bets. I will bet first halves and totals and stuff, and some correlated stuff I've talked about on here before. Open my mouth a little bit too much and give away too much some of the times. But that's great information. It really is, guys. So that's something I'd recommend. When you follow David, that's the great part of his articles to find out how much money, because I forget what they call it. They call it the market. They call it when someone reports on so much percentage of the bets splits. So they say the splits. There's so much percentage of the splits are on this and that. I got to be. I'm a cynical guy. I really don't believe a lot of those splits I read but this one coming from FanDuel, they're telling you that 98% and 89%. I absolutely believe it. Absolutely. So
yeah, I mean, I just don't know if there's any incentive for the sports books to make up anything. And secondly, I would say I've been covering this for 13 years, as we've discussed. Never have I had a guy that used to work at a sports book, right? I know guys, former employees say, you know what, we were messing with you there. We just completely made those numbers. Nobody's ever said that to me.
Yeah, good.
And I would have heard it by now if somebody would have,
sure.
right? So, sure. I mean, I just don't think there's any, they're not going to waste the time to go out and try to make up some sort of numbers. It's just, I don't see it happening.
I want to know what the public is on. The real public is on long-term. Betting against the public is a winner, and they're always going to be on a favorite. It's very rare they're on an underdog. So that's why I want to know that. John, you got a question?
Yeah, David, obviously you're on the pulse of the industry, and over the last 2 years, it's been kind of wild between DraftKings and FanDuel becoming legal in every state. If you could look into your crystal ball, what do you see or predict happening in 2022/2023? Anything?
I really don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we're going to see some sort of backlash here at some point from regulators in terms of the marketing and the advertising, all the commercials that we started to see. The NFL allowed 6 sports betting commercials per game this year. That's right in line with some of the other categories, or insurance and beer commercials and whatever. But it went from 0 commercials for sports betting last year to 6 this year. So that feels big. Yeah. And I just think that the overall aggression of some of the sports book and the sports betting industry overall is going to have some backlash from either politicians or state regulators at some point. I look back at the daily fantasy rise in 2014, 2015. It exploded. People got tired of the advertising. All of a sudden, you start seeing investigations from attorney generals. You start seeing politicians. So I do think that, unfortunately, we're going to eventually see some sort of pushback against this industry. And that usually happens. It's what happens between you get kind of a push and a pull. How aggressive can the businesses be before the regulators step in and pull back on it? So I think we're probably going to see a little bit of that this year.
It's a great point, because they're making it look really sexy too, right? Like the BetMGM has the Jamie Foxx as their spokesperson, and he's in front of the Vegas nightlife, and a lot of these ads look sexy, and I could see that happening where they're going to say, hey, like it's a
John, you bring up a fantastic point. It's almost too sexy. It's geared. I spend about a third or even half the season in New Jersey, and I see these ads that are targeted at housewives in the afternoon for the online casinos. You have Jamie Foxx, you have Shaq, you have. I even seen one of the not Matt Damon. Who was his partner? Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck commercial. So it's this is easy to do, and I'm all about responsible gaming. I mean, I really am. I talk about it all the time. I talk about being a kid growing up where I grew up and owning bookmakers when I was a kid. I talk about experiences that come from the street, not from just sitting home and learning sports betting on my phone. I talk about stuff when I grew up in the Bronx, when I grew up in North Jersey. I know exactly what it is to owe money out and not have it. These regulators are pretty tough in New Jersey, though. I'll tell you. I went down to Atlantic City, my first deposit at DraftKings, which I had set up with a host. And I went down there, and they wouldn't take the amount of money I was depositing. I'll just tell you, it was $50,000. They wouldn't take 50. They took 15. And they said, look, we have to check out your bank account, and we needed a utility bill. And basically, they had to do a check about me. And not only me, anyone depositing large amounts of money. New Jersey's pretty tough. I hope the other new jurisdictions are as tough as New Jersey. But then again, I am the rarity, though. People don't deposit that kind of money. The average bet in this country is under $100. So
Sure.
you get lost in there, thinking I'm too close to the sun, thinking that everyone does that. That's not true. So you have to really promote this responsibly. And I do hope that they do cut down because, I was a kid going to Yankee Stadium. We used to take the bus to Yankee Stadium. I could picture those kids that are doing that now. There's advertisements all out in the field for sports books. Same thing at MetLife and everything else. There's, wherever you go, Citi Field, there's advertisements everywhere for sports betting. It's so accepted now that these kids think it's nothing. It's not even a vice. It's just fun. But I know what happens. I know it's classic gambling. You're on your phone and you're over betting. And next thing what happens is you go broke. And when you go broke, what do? You never bet sports before, but now you bet it because all those sports books are advertising out in center field. Now what happens? You go to your local bar, your corner candy store, your pool hall. You find a local bookmaker. And that's how this spiral gets out of control. I know what it is. So I actually hope it does. They do, curtail that a little bit this coming year. And, we'll see what happens here. But I really didn't think about that there was, you said something about 6 was allowed. I didn't know there was a number that's allowed. There's only 6 commercials allowed per
6 sports betting commercials per NFL game is allowed. The NFL put a cap on it. They were worried about this they did not want it to turn into the UK, where they thought the advertising for sports betting is saturated sports, saturated the Premier League. They were made a conscious effort about it. And whether you think 6 is too many or not, it was in line with some of the other categories.
Wow. Okay, cool. So listen, lastly from me, you've covered a lot of gambling related stories here, and I've been part of some of them. You call me once in a while for one of them. What has stood out? Do you think you have like a standout story or even a character you found to be so interesting or over the years, maybe someone that's knowledgeable or maybe just something that made you even shake your head? Has there been any real big stories, or are they all that good?
I think we can just go to a couple nights ago. It was one of the wildest stories that I remember with the tie with the Chargers and Raiders scenarios. Bookmakers were exposed. I don't even think when I was talking to them Sunday night, they didn't realize how much exposure they had on those same game parlays that were tied into a tie. That game could have ended in a tie very easily, went into overtime. And they would have been on the hook for tens of millions of dollars. Now, at the same time, we had Draymond Green announcing right before tip-off of this game against the Cavaliers that he was just going to go on the court in honor of Klay Thompson returning and go off. Well, when that announcement was made, bettors jumped on his unders, on his props, his player props, right? They pounded it and parlayed them, and they took alternate numbers, and they put the books in another millions of dollar loss. So those two things happening at the exact same time on a Sunday night just a couple of days ago, man, wow. That was among the wildest things that I've covered.
Wow, that really is. And my side. I'm a sports bettor there. It's not my fault that you guys didn't get the meaning of sports books, that you guys didn't get the information that I got by following social media. So sure. I'm glad they paid. I know DraftKings stalled that at first, but DraftKings paid everybody. DraftKings went over and above. They actually gave the money back to the people that bet the overs.
The over.
So they really went over and above. So I'm on the players' side there when it comes to that. But that tie, wow. They weren't playing for a tie, but it almost happened. Mm-hmm. It almost happened there. And I know for a fact, just some people around here that I have contacts, my own contacts, millions of dollars would have been won by a couple wise guys. Millions of dollars. Someone sent me their ticket that I know, $140. He did a parlay, money line, Jacksonville to the 28-1. He would have got back $34,000 for $140. So that's so interesting. But well, listen, David, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. For everyone out there, please check him out. He's on. You're the chalk section of ESPN. You're on Twitter. Your handle's there. It's at David Purdum. Is that correct?
It is.
You're on TV a lot on the ESPN shows. And back in the day, I think you were on Outside the Lines too. Is that correct? You still?
Yeah, we used to have Outside the Lines. That was a good spot for gambling kind of industry talk too.
It was. And now the Daily Wagers, a show they have, and you were on there on that a lot. But we really appreciate you coming on, taking your time with us today, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Crack.
Well, it was a great guest. Another great guest, Crack. Good job with that one.
Yeah, he was good, man. He's the pulse of the ESPN and the gambling industry when it comes to journalists. So fantastic.
Okay, before we go, because we are just about out of time, want to give a big shout out and tease next week's guest. Of course, there's a big UFC fight that I will be attending this Saturday night. Giga Chikadze, our buddy from the show here, is going to be stepping in against Calvin Kattar or Qatar, however you want to say it. Tough fight for Giga. This is a good matchup, but I believe Giga will get it done. He's a big favorite though, Cracks. So he's minus, I think, 250 or 270. But of course,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
wow.
That's a little misleading. I mean, I would never ever bet against Giga, but I think that line is a little out of whack because I don't know if there's a fight that easy in his division, as those odds are saying. But I believe Giga will get it done, and we'll have him on next week to celebrate.
That's awesome. Look forward to that.
All right, Crack. Good to see you virtually, and I look forward to next week's Wisecracks.